Now joined by Ambassador Martin Kimani, who's the director of Kenya's National Counterterrorism Center. Thanks for joining us tonight on KTN Prime. Indeed, we're all calling this victory over terror.
Well, thanks for having me. I think it's a very important day for Kenya. First in the students who have returned to Garissa, to the administration of the university that has worked so hard to bring it back to being ready to admit students again, and of course to the different security agencies that have stepped up their response and really changed the way that university is organized. But even as we celebrate, I think we remember the people who were killed and murdered brutally in Garissa University College. We can't forget them. So our celebration, I think, is also tempered with sadness, because it didn't have to be this way. They were innocent. They had a lot of hope in their futures, and that hope was stolen from them.
Okay, like you say, it didn't have to be this way. So what lessons have we learned? What's different in our approach in the war against terror?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is that we're dealing with an enemy who is very determined and very persistent, and who is not just an enemy to Kenya, but in fact, as any Kenyan knows, globally, we have a big problem with terrorism. And so the Kenyan security agencies have very much tried to take our responses as a community of security agencies higher. So under CS and Kaiseri, and of course the president, there has been a noticeable rising of the tempo of the way intelligence is collected and the way it's worked on. There's a lot more interagency cooperation today than I think there's ever been in Kenya's history. And so we have a new team by the president, from the Inspector General of Police, of course the Director General of Intelligence, and of course the Cabinet Secretary of Interior himself. And so this new team, I think, is characterized by having an especially huge amount of concern for how they work together. So increasingly they're collecting intelligence together, sharing it, and acting on it. But I think the biggest change beyond the security response is the awareness of Kenyans. And we have seen Kenyans coming to the front very, very, very in a greatly increased fashion. Kenyans are telling police and are feeding us more information than ever before. When they see something, they're telling us, and we've had a lot of success over the last few months.
So you think there's more trust now between the Kenyan citizens and the intelligence agencies or the police service?
I think there's increased trust. And I also think there's increased conviction by Kenyans that we're facing a common enemy. Al-Shabaab is not the enemy of Kenya's security forces. Al-Shabaab wants to kill you and your family. And so I think more and more Kenyans are aware of this, and more Kenyans feel empowered to act.
Let's talk about the Counterterrorism Center, which you head. What is the work of it, and where does it fit in our counterterrorism strategy? Are you a police service? Do you gather intelligence? Do you catch the bad guys? Tell us about the center that you run and how it fits into the whole process.
Well, the National Counterterrorism Center is a mechanism for the security agencies. And so within us, we have a representation of all the security agencies. And earlier last year, the security law amendments actually gave us a mandate, not only to engage with the public in terms of counter and de-radicalization, but issues of broad coordination. So we're not involved in day-to-day operations. I don't have reports on a day-to-day basis of so-and-so is being chased somewhere. But the broad issues of strategy, we focus on how we can bring in more instruments within government and outside government to this problem. Because Yvonne, we're arresting these people, we're convicting them in our courts more than ever before. But ultimately, our victory is going to be because we have reduced the pool of radicalized young Kenyans, and that we have made their message, Al-Shabaab's message, politically unpalatable to Kenyans and to the world.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about where we go from here.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we had our first major terrorist attack in the country in 98 with the August 7th bombing, we said never again. And then we started to see a number of others. We went into Somalia. Many remember Westgate. After that, we said never again.
Yes.
And then, you know, we know of the attacks in Mandera, Mpeketoni, Lamu, and then Garissa. And we keep saying never again. We keep saying it shouldn't have had to happen. People shouldn't have had to die for us to keep learning lessons. So what is that one big lesson that we've learned, and how do we now guarantee that when we say never again right now, that we truly do mean it, and that we can minimize, A, the number of attacks and the magnitude of them as well?
Yvonne, let me say I will not say never again, because I think that would not be speaking to the facts of the matter. We have an enemy who is determined to cause harm to Kenyans, to Somalis, to civilians, and they will keep trying. And the sad truth of the matter is we can be 99% effective, and they just need to get lucky once to hurt an innocent Kenyan. And so for us, we want for the international community to make its efforts in Somalia far more robust. We think that if the UN Security Council and our partners were to say, let us destroy al-Shabaab militarily, I think AMISOM would be given the mandate, and a stronger mandate, more resources, more naval resources, more air cover resources. And I think that is something the international community needs to do. We cannot fight terrorism on the cheap, and indeed, when Kenya is alongside African forces are fighting al-Shabaab, we're doing it on behalf of global peace and security. So we need that. And I think we also, the big lesson is that Kenyans, the day Kenyans as a people say we are done with al-Shabaab's nonsense, what that will mean is that if you're a landlord and somebody comes to rent a room from you, you will observe them more closely. If you're in a matatu and you see something that you're suspicious of, you will say something about it. And this will shrink the amount of room they have to operate in our country. And I think if our political leaders, all of them across the spectrum, speak in a single voice, so that where al-Shabaab is concerned, there's no politics, there's only Kenyans, then that way al-Shabaab will become politically irrelevant. And the day it becomes politically irrelevant, not just here, but across the Horn, all it'll be is a small criminal gang with murderous intent. And we'll be able to defeat them then.
All right, and that's a very good way to end it, and to just encompass the work that you do. We'll continue to take a look at what your center does and to engage with you a little bit more. Kimani. Thank you very much, Ambassador Martin
Yvonne,
Kimani.
let me say, the media has a huge role. And so we thank you for the work you're doing, and we hope that you will continue to point the picture first at Kenyans' strength and resilience, because Kenyans need to be lifted up.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Ambassador Martin Kimani, who's the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, is definitely someone we will continue to have here when we discuss counterterrorism strategy in Kenya, in the region, and indeed in the world. Thanks very much for your time tonight as we celebrate the resumption of classes, but like he says, tempered a little bit, with remembering the lives of